motivation music. Get control of your life, don't let nobody else do it. Cause so and I gon' have Metro S550s cruising. Feel like you winning on the ground.
Yes, sir. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Run with me, Manny Wilson, all the way from Detroit to Chicago to your speakers and headphones. Now, I appreciate you tuning in to the first interactive sports podcast, a community that makes sure your voice is heard. So if you hear something you agree with, you disagree with, you like or you dislike, go ahead, shoot us a quick take, 219-413-9405. And of course, we will play your take back on our next episode. And then shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this episode. Get $20 off your first ticket purchase when you use the promo code The Run Podcast. Now, this only works for first-time users on the mobile app or website. So I don't know about you, but football season is about to start. It's a lot of concerts going on in the summer. So you definitely need to go ahead and book those tickets to whatever it is you're into. Now, one of the things I'm into right now is the preseason. And I got to give a fair warning to a lot of people because for some reason, and maybe it's just because it's the offseason and it's been taking so long for the actual NFL season to come back. But a lot of people have been getting crazy hype about everything that happens in the preseason. When in reality, man, you gotta relax a little bit. You gotta remember this is just the preseason. Like, people on the field in the preseason is fighting for third string, fourth string, just for simply a roster spot on special teams. Like, it's far from the higher up level that we're used to seeing during the regular season. So I understand, it is exciting to even watch football again, but ultimately it means absolutely nothing. So nobody should really be getting hype about anything that's happening in the preseason, especially not no wins and losses. I know it's kind of difficult when your team is actually winning games in the preseason. You're like, yeah, my teams, we're going to be good this year. I get it, but hey, just using the Bears as an example, I'm sorry, Bears fans, but we seen Caleb Williams turn into the preseason MVP last year. He was lighting it up, throwing dimes, all kind of stuff, and everybody was hype about that. And then we see exactly what that turned out to be for the Chicago Bears. So I'm just saying, using that as an example, don't get too excited about the preseason in the NFL. Just let things play out. Let week 1 to 3 go by. Then you start getting a little hype about what your team is doing. And I know it's not easy to do, but just giving the heads up on it's better that way. Trust me, because if you get hype in the preseason, watching what your team does, and then they come out here and lay an egg week 1 through week 5, you're going to be pissed. I'm trying to help you out. I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan. I know how the game goes. I've been dealing with it. Come on, man. I'm just trying to help y'all out. Anyway, speaking of preseason, there's a lot of different things that come with the preseason. And one of those things are the predictions of the preseason of the records. Now, I feel definitely disrespected because Bleacher Report put out a list of winning records and just records in general for each team this upcoming season. So I took a look, of course, checking out my team, seeing what they're doing. And then you won't believe where the hell they have my Atlanta Falcons on this damn ranking of predictions and all kind of things. So it's crazy. And I'm going to show you really quick on the share screen, but this is ridiculous. They have the Atlanta Falcons, Bleacher Report, going 8-9 in this 2025 season, which is just ridiculous to me, considering the amount of talent they have on this team. And they don't have a crazy difficult schedule. So mind blowing as soon as I seen this, I'm like, couldn't believe it. But this is their explanation for it. I'll just read through it really fast. It said, Michael Penix Jr. provides a spark for the Atlanta Falcons. Aerial attack the last 3 weeks of the 2024 season, despite 2 overtime losses in that stretch. As he gains more experience, the second-year quarterback should be able to move the ball through the air with consistency. He's hinted at a growing rapport with tight end Kyle Pitts, which is a good sign for the passing attack. However, Penix might have to win scoring shootouts like he did last year. Atlanta boasted its pass rush, signing Leonard Floyd and selecting Jalen Walker and trading up for James Pierce Jr. in the first round of this year's draft. But returning starter quarterbacks Mike Hughes and D. Alford allowed passer ratings higher than 105 last year. A.J. Terrell gave up a completion rate about 10% higher in 2024 than he allowed in 2023. So they're trying to say our defensive backs are washed, and they finish off this summary by saying Atlanta's secondary could be exposed in crucial matchups. Now, look, Bleacher Report, 8-9 for a valid reason. I understand that. You saying our secondary is weak is kind of debatable because the thing they didn't really pay attention to, you mentioned that we boosted up our pass rush in the front seven, adding James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker and Leonard Floyd. You mentioned that part, but you ain't mentioned last year that we couldn't get a damn stop in the backfield to save our lives. Tell me what defensive backs in the NFL can cover these fast wide receivers and these slot receivers and running backs for 35 seconds because quarterbacks is getting all the time in the world to throw the ball. If you don't get a pass rush or any pressures on the quarterback like the Falcons failed to do last year, of course your secondary is going to be penalized for it. Of course the secondary is going to look trash. And meaning all of this trash looks that the secondary had last year because of the bad pass rush, Jesse Bates still was the top safety in the NFL. So I understand the logic that they're trying to do here, but truth be told, bro, this sounds like some stuff that they seen from ChatGPT. It seems like they asked him from a quick summary, which it probably was, to be honest, and ended up just rolling with whatever punches they could get out of it. Because this makes no sense to me. Noticing that, okay, yeah, the secondary percentages of this passer rating, he didn't do a good job. But just like you mentioned in the beginning of the article, it should occur to any other person in the world that if the pass rush is bad, then obviously the secondary is going to be penalized for it. And that's exactly what happened to the Atlanta Falcons last year. So 8-9 record with this schedule of the Atlanta Falcons, I think is a joke. And you know, I think they didn't really pay attention to what the Falcons had going on. And, you know, I kind of want to summarize this up just to say, I'm cool with being underdogs. I'm cool with being underdogs, and I'm cool with being overlooked as long as the Falcons come out and prove everybody wrong. Because I say give it to maybe week 6, and the offense is going to be very explosive again. And the biggest change from last year's Atlanta Falcons to this year's Atlanta Falcons is going to be that pass rush and the ability to get pressure on other teams' quarterback. And this will, of course, trickle down to the secondary, getting more and more stops, and ultimately the defense forcing more and more turnovers. So that's cool that Bleacher Report got us at 8-9. They said our secondary is washed, the secondary is trash. All of that is cool. It sounds good when you type it in the chat GPT and say, hey, give me a quick summary of the Falcons and what their record will be, which they probably did. But I'm going to just say it like this, man. I'm cool with being underdogs, and I can't wait until the season starts because this is the type of thing where it makes me want to go even more crazy as an Atlanta Falcons fan when I know that we're going to be better and you know, the time comes to where we're winning ball games. This is why I warned a lot of people on me acting extremely belligerent once the Falcons start winning these games. This is why I say things like that, because the constant disrespect is just insane. Now, on the brighter side, I will say this. There's some light with the Atlanta Falcons. One of the things I think needs to be talked about here is the fact that the biggest factor for the Atlanta Falcons on if they'll have a lot of success this season is going to be heavily relied on the rookies. I think James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, even Leonard Floyd, obviously not a rookie, but Xavier Watts, a lot of these guys are going to be very, very impactful for the Atlanta Falcons on if this defense comes to life, because we struggled last year. We were 31st in sacks last year, trying to get to other teams' quarterbacks and actually getting stops by getting in the backfield. We were 31st in sacks. Ridiculous. So with the pressure being on James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker, these guys got to show up big, and they got to really get a lot of stops and get in the backfield, get the pressures, and hopefully get some sacks on the other team. Because if this helps, this will really, really boost our defense, and this will show that, hey, this is not the same Atlanta Falcons team as last year. If we can get sacks on other teams, quarterback and things like that, get some good pressures and things like that. So that's going to be the biggest factor. And I know right away a lot of people probably think like, damn, man, well, that's a lot of pressure on the young guys and the rookies. But the fact is, 31st in sacks last year is not difficult to improve from. That's easy to improve from already. The young guys can definitely top that, if anything. And then you got to keep in mind, too, the year the Falcons went to the Super Bowl 51, I don't want to talk about how the results ended out, but the year they went to the Super Bowl, we had a lot of impactful players from the draft in that previous year. I mean, you think it was McKinney over there. You had, what was the other guy? The other linebacker who was a huge help. Duke Riley, he was a huge help in that front seven as well. So those guys, we drafted them, and then they ended up showing up big time for the Atlanta Falcons defense that year they did go to the Super Bowl. So, it is possible. It's something that can happen. So, you got to keep those things in mind. That's where I'm thinking when I think of the expectations for these young guys on this Atlanta Falcons roster. But ultimately, man, only time will tell. I'll say this, man. To wrap up with my Atlanta Falcons talk, I love that the Falcons have become the team to talk to when you need a quarterback. So the reason I bring this up is because the Rams' Matthew Stafford has been going through some injuries with some back issues. And, the rumors are starting to circle around saying the Rams going to get in some conversations with the Atlanta Falcons to get Kirk Cousins. Now, will the Rams look good with Kirk Cousins? Probably. But I just love the fact that if any team has a QB problem and they want to get another quarterback, you got to go talk to the Atlanta Falcons. You got to go talk and see what Kirk Cousins is doing over there, see what they got going on with Kirk Cousins. I love that we get to kind of play. I love that we have this much power, really. That's really what it is. So hopefully Matthew Stafford is all right and he can get on the field and play, but God forbid he doesn't. Hey, Rams, y'all know who to call. God forbid the Saints, Tyler Snow, whatever. Hey, as bad as he's been looking, God forbid y'all want a quarterback. Y'all know who to contact. Hey, just saying. Falcons is the one with the extra quarterback. And there's a lot of teams in this league right now that's going to need an extra quarterback to either help them get in the playoffs or just help them turn around their season. So you know who to call if that is the case there. So I'll leave it at that, man. Look, we got some more stuff coming up. AFC North, AFC South predictions. I had to break this up because trying to predict them all in one episode is going to be a lot. So had to predict this and break it up a little bit, but stay tuned. We got some more stuff coming up in just a sec. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the predictions, and it's halftime. All right, bet it up. I ain't gonna lie though, bro. 8-9 is ridiculous. With this Atlanta Falcons team, 8-9 is something else. I don't understand how. I guess that's my last thing. I don't understand how, they say 8-9 is gonna be the record for the Falcons, but the clear biggest difference was the pass rush, and the Falcons added a lot more to the pass rush and the defense. So, blows my mind. Anyway, we got other predictions to make. So, we're going to jump into those predictions now, actually. Oh, it's about to be crazy. Let's do it. All right, welcome back to The Run with me, Manny Wilson. I appreciate you for tuning in. Of course, shoot us a quick take on the voicemail line, 219-413-9405. And of course, we will play your take back on the next episode. Now, we got some AFC North and AFC South division winners here. Now, let's start with the AFC North, because this division is, people argue that this is, the most stacked division in football. And I think it really comes down to the powerhouses of the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Ravens coming off of back-to-back division wins, which is cool. But there's a pattern here in the AFC North, which is kind of strange. And it's like each time a team wins 2 division titles back-to-back, they lose the following year. And another team wins the next 2. So, for example, The Bengals won the division in 2021 and 2022. Then the Ravens ended up winning division 2023 and 2024, which was last year. So it's crazy. Honestly, the Browns immediately eliminated. I'm going to just go ahead and put them off to the side right now. I don't think they're in any position to compete for the division right now. No shade to Browns fans, but let's just get that out the way. I don't want to talk nonsense. The Steelers, I see the Steelers going 8-9 again, and I see a lot of Steelers fans being pissed and calling for Mike Tomlin to actually be fired. But with Aaron Rodgers as the leader, personally, I'm not convinced that will be enough for the Pittsburgh Steelers to actually go along and win the division. I know what Mike Tomlin has done over the past few years with all the other quarterbacks and this guy and that guy, and he's had the defense doing this and that. But ultimately, I think his time in Pittsburgh has clocked out. I think it's over with after this 9-8 season, 8-9 season again with the Pittsburgh Steelers. People will really begin to realize that Mike Tomlin has to go. And as great as a coach he is, sometimes a change in scenery is just what a person needs. And I think that's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers need to do. So I don't really see them winning the division. And I think it's a two-team race, really, in the AFC North between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, no disrespect to the Steelers and the Browns, but it's just not that year for y'all, unfortunately. And between these two teams, the Ravens, Bengals, I think the Bengals going to end up winning it. And I say this because, man, the pattern. I'm on the side of the pattern. Each team only wins two division championships, and then the next team goes and win another two. I look at what the Bengals went through last year. Some injuries. There was a lot of situations going on with the defense where they're just awful. Oh, my gosh, god awful. And the defense is still kind of going to be struggling, especially if they don't re-sign Hendrickson. But the ultimate reason I say the Cincinnati Bengals will end up winning this division is because they can go toe-to-toe with anybody and everybody, regardless of how bad that defense is. Nobody can stop that offense of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. I don't know why, man. For some reason, this Cincinnati Bengals offense remains explosive despite how bad the O-line is, despite how bad the defense is, despite how bad the play call is. Whatever it is, the Bengals will always be competition as long as they have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Those two guys, and the rest, I know they're not the only ones on the offense, but those two guys being the core of the offense really just help the Cincinnati Bengals always stay competitive. So last year, we seen a lot of games go down to the wire with the Ravens and the Bengals and even Bengals and the Chiefs, and just a lot of Bengals games went down to the wire here. So I think push comes to shove, Ravens, yeah, they still got the same defense, the same squad that is very elite. No shade to them. But ultimately, I think push comes to shove, man. If the Bengals just improve just a tiny bit from the start of how they did last year, I think the Bengals can definitely take this division. So I'm going to go with them, man. And also the pattern of 2-2 each year of teams winning 2 division titles back-to-back, then losing the next 2. That title has not failed just about all decade, or that pattern just hasn't failed just about all decade. So, you know, that really stands out to me. But ultimately, man, Bengals, that defense is just rough, man. That defense is very bad. It's ugly. They allowed the 3rd most yards in the conference, and they can just outscore teams, which is just ridiculous. So as long as they got Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, I believe in the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'm going with the Bengals to win this division here, even though the Ravens look elite. They got the same squad. Defense is elite. They was number 1 in defense in certain categories. I understand all of that, man. But some about the combination of the core of that offense between Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they stay competitive no matter how bad every other aspect of the team is. So going with the Cincinnati Bengals to win that division of the AFC North. Gonna be crazy if it does happen. Just best believe you're gonna see this clip. Just know. Anyway, the other team here is the AFC South. Now the AFC South, man, a lot of people look at this division and you think it's not really that competitive right now. You see the Texans and the dominance of C.J. Stroud, what he's been doing over the past few years. They've kind of had control of this division the past few years in back-to-back division champs. However, I think there is going to be a little bit of competition in the AFC South, man. So you look around in this division, you see the Jaguars, Titans, Colts, immediately you're like, well, all of these teams are kind of bad. But I think the team that can really make for competition in this division is going to be the Tennessee Titans, man. And I don't say the Tennessee Titans are going to be great competition for the Texans in this division because of Cam Ward. Yes, Cam Ward is great, and he'll outperform whatever the hell Will Levis was doing. But the defense for the Tennessee Titans is low-key not bad, man. This defense is kind of nice. When you think about it, I know they allow, depending on how you manipulate the statistics, it can look bad in certain ways. But you got to remember that over more than half of their 14 games that they lost last year was still a down to the wire type of situation, man. They lost more than half of these 14 games by less than 10 points last year when you talk about the Tennessee Titans defense. So also, if you look even deeper into what they've been doing, they allowed the least amount of points per game in the conference, and they allowed the least amount of passing yards in the AFC as well. So the Titans defense, man, I think they'll continue to be solid. They didn't really lose many people off that defense. And then you add Cam Ward, who can possibly help bring in some scoring on the offense. And hey, man, division games get weird. Division games get messy. So Texans, they probably have some competition here in the Tennessee Titans. I know the Colts usually give them a run for their money, and so do the Jaguars. You could argue that the Jaguars might make a difference, but I'm not convinced on the Jaguars, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But I think the biggest competition for the Houston Texans in this division here is the Tennessee Titans. So I'm going with the Texans to win this division of the AFC South, but I think the most competitive team and a team that will give the Texans the most competition in this division is going to be the Tennessee Titans without a single doubt. Now, all my Jaguars people, please come to the stand. Let's talk Jaguars, because Trevor Lawrence ain't been getting enough slander for me on the field. I'll put it that way. Trevor Lawrence ain't been getting enough slander for me as a quarterback on the field. We talk about the NBA. We laugh at Joel Embiid, no conference finals. What the hell we do? We talk about Kyler Murray. We talk about Justin Herbert. We talk about Justin Fields. A lot of these people in similar draft classes have been getting a lot of criticism, man. They've been getting a lot of hate on why they haven't accomplished this and why they haven't accomplished this. I'm just saying, where's that same energy for Trevor Lawrence? I ain't got nothing against him as a person, whatever. But on the field, where's that same energy for Trevor Lawrence and everything that hasn't been coming with the wins and the playoff wins and the victories and stuff like that? What's the excuses? And I know, look, you could argue the pieces around him and the pieces this, but I'm just saying, man, at some point, when you're the top 5 highest paid quarterback in the NFL and you ain't producing wins, that to me looks like a waste of money. And it's clearly not enough criticism for a guy who's top 5 highest paid in the league right now, because Trevor Lawrence should be getting slandered left and right about his play and production on the field and why it hasn't translated to wins. That's all I'm saying. And look, in the Jaguars, I really don't think there'll be much competition in the AFC North this year. You can argue with me, but I'm going to tell you some stats here, because I didn't really see many improvements made this offseason that's really going to help them be much better than last year. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, he stays healthy. Cool. He got a new receiver, Travis Hunter. Cool. I love that. He might make some noise, but ultimately, what you going to do about that defense in Jacksonville? Because the defense gave up the most passing yards in the AFC last season. They gave up the second to most rushing yards in the AFC. They gave up the most yards per game in the AFC. And they really didn't do much on building on that defense outside of Travis Hunter. That's the most exciting thing that they have right now. So I get it. Hey, you got Trevor Lawrence healthy and, Travis Hunter, who's going to be exciting. He's going to smile. But ultimately, man, it ain't enough slander going around for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. For me, only because he's the highest paid, one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. To me, no. But I think Texans got this division on lock. They'll run it back. They'll probably three-peat and secure this division again. But Texans or the Titans is going to be another team to watch for competition. So Texans-Titans is really going to be the biggest race in this division of the AFC South. So that's how I see it. Other than that, man, look, dog, I greatly appreciate you for tuning in, listening, kicking it with me. Of course, if you hear something you agree with, you dislike, you just want to get a takeoff, go ahead. 219-413-9405, and we'll play your take back on the next episode. Other than that, man, I'm gonna leave y'all on a positive note here. And the positive note is something I've said plenty of times and something I've said before. But it's just gonna be rest if you need to, but just don't quit. So sometimes you gotta take a break. Sometimes you need to take a nap, whatever. You need to ease up, change your routine, scale back, evaluate. But just don't quit. Keep going at it. Because if you quit, that's gonna be the only thing that stops you from getting to your goal. Sometimes it takes longer. Shoot, trust me. I know, man. Definitely takes a long time sometimes to get where you're trying to go. So just stay at it and then you'll get there. As long as you keep trying to figure it out, you'll get there. Other than that, man, that's all I got for you. I appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll be back later on this week. And so on and so on and so on.